we decided to sell everything that we had, everything. We sold our house, we sold our car, we sold our socks, detergent, everything. There was like no turning back. We burned all our bridges. I was so convinced that we would succeed. I didn't want to have a backup. Alina Vandenberghe, the co-founder and co-CEO of Chili Piper, she really paved her way to becoming senior leader in the company, then became an entrepreneur together with her husband. I knew that I wanted to be at the top of the totem pole. I didn't know what would get me there. When I came here, it was the beginning of iPhone time. They had just launched it. There were no apps in it. And I wanted to be the expert at building mobile products. I got a few successes, so I built a portfolio. And when I started going into interview, I was one of the few people at that time to have a portfolio. In my first year, Steve Jobs wanted to build something for the iPad, and I was the only one in the company that had experience with all this portfolio on mobile. The app got keynoted by Steve Jobs. We had it like everywhere in Times Square. So I really thought that I was doing really well. But my manager was very unhappy with me. And he said, Alina, I don't think this is going to work out. You have to go.
Welcome to FemLead, the podcast dedicated to empowering the next generation of leaders through inspiring stories of success from female role models. Our mission is to equip you with actionable insights and practical tools to achieve your professional goals. FemLead is more than just a podcast. It's a vibrant community and a dynamic platform committed to closing the gender gap in leadership. In each episode, your host Alexandra brings you powerful perspectives and strategies from remarkable women who share their journeys, advice, and experiences. Whether it's career progression, leadership, or overcoming challenges, FemLead is here to help you thrive and set clear goals for success. If you enjoy our show, please leave us a review and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Let's dive in and take action.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of FemLead Podcast. Long time no speak. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for joining us today. And welcome back to FemLead, where we share inspiring stories from women everywhere about their career journeys and their transformative paths in their lives. Today, I'm tuning in from New York City. I wanted to share on this new episode of the year that I've recently relocated to New York as of end of last year. From now on, I'll be sharing stories from women that are really doing cool things here in the US. And I look forward to expanding the reach of this podcast, but also the audience, and hear pieces of advice from cool women everywhere. Our next guest is someone that I met probably in the first 10 days of moving to the US. She's really a trailblazer. She's an entrepreneur. She's a big promoter of women in leadership, a big promoter of women in business, and really a community builder. And she has a really cool story on how she started from intern to becoming a senior vice president of a publicly traded company in 6 years. She has a lot of career experiences, but she also is very genuine and kind with her time and shares her story, shares advice, and shares lessons all the time. And today we're going to learn from Alina Vandenberghe about her success story. We're going to learn about Chili Piper, about career progression and how she set herself up for success in order to be promoted several times, and how she took the decision to become an entrepreneur and now be the co-CEO and co-founder of a company that's almost traded at $1 billion. It's a pretty fantastic story, and I really hope that you'll stick with us for the full episode, because we deep dive into some of those cool lessons. So Alina is originally from Romania, and this is how we connected in the first place. She's been in the US for the past 17 years. During her journey, she really showed that she wants to be at the top, and she knew that from the beginning. And she really paved her way to becoming a senior leader in a company, but also then became an entrepreneur together with her husband. She speaks openly about the complexities of co-founding a business with a spouse, emphasizing on the importance of mutual respect and conflict resolution. Beyond work, Alina is an advocate for women in tech and leadership, and she shares her insights into entrepreneurship, growth, and evolving landscape of marketing and sales automation. It's really a pleasure to bring you this discussion today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back, and I really hope that you're going to enjoy this episode. Hello, Alina. Welcome to Family Podcast. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for accepting our invite, and welcome.
Thank you, Alexandra, for having me. All my pleasure.
I'm so excited, Alina. You were one of the first people I met here in New York since I moved here, and I just felt like instantly I have to talk to you about your amazing career. And you were so gracious and welcoming. So thank you so much for that. It's been quite a few months since we've shared some career progression advice and discussing more in depth how people can take charge of their careers. So after having our event in Denmark a few months ago, we decided that we want to bring stories of entrepreneur to life. So we also understand a little bit more in depth how difficult it is to build a company, but also what skills do you need in order to be successful. Success is very individual, so of course we look forward to hearing your opinion and your journey. So maybe let's start, Alina, by setting the stage and telling our audience your story from moving from Romania to the US and now starting Chili Pepper.
Well, it was brave of you to come to New York. It's a crazy city. When I came, I knew very early that I wanted to do that. So I remember I had on my door a sign that everybody in my family thought it was funny. It was in Romanian, the literal translation is general manager, but what I really meant was I was already the CEO in my mind when I was like 12, and everybody would always call me bossy. Everybody would associate me with the bossy girl because I loved being. I just loved having a positive impact on others, and that's what drove me.
And this is also something that we're discussing sometime. What does it mean to be bossy?
I remember a lot of instances in my childhood when I was being called that way. I really felt that if I was in charge, things would be a lot more organized and things would be on the right path. And not everybody likes to be bossed around, so I didn't have the right tools to get the right outcomes that I wanted at that time. So for instance, I was always volunteering to be the class delegate. I would always volunteer for anything that would allow me to do things better. And because as a child, you don't really have the tool to get people to do what needs to be done, I was a little bit bossy.
But that's also, how I guess leadership is starting from an early age, because there are people that are really assertive and they really have to figure out their way in the world, right? And this is why having you here is really cool, because the goal really is to discuss how you decided for yourself that I want to be an entrepreneur. Obviously, after also having your career in another company before, and I would like to give a rundown to our audience on how did you become an entrepreneur? How did you decide to start Chili Piper, and what was the, let's say, story there?
I started working very, very early. I started working when I was around 8 years old, and it was mostly out of necessity, not out of desire. My parents they had poor means, and I really wanted to be able to buy things for school. I wanted to have, fancy crayons and fancy notebooks beyond the basics. And I didn't realize it at that time that was called entrepreneurship, because I was selling things door to door. I was training, I was giving math lessons, whatever I would get paid for, I would do. And I started enjoying it a lot because I would see that I became independent from those additional income. I would also help my sister, I would help my mom, I would help my dad, and it felt like I was powerful. And when you get the joy from things, it starts snowballing. When you feel like you can do things that impact others, it becomes even more pleasurable. But I didn't know that's what entrepreneurship was. So when I came here in US, I didn't know that's the path I would take. I really thought that I would climbed the corporate ladder, and that's kind of in the stars for me because that's what I had on my door. But love hit, and I got married to a French guy that swept me under my feet, and he's an entrepreneur. And he had started companies, several of them. Some of them did well, some of them went bankrupt. And he kept insisting, Alina, we should start a company together. Alina, you are very good at product. Let's start a company together. And I kept resisting and resisting until 2016 when it felt like it was time. And the reason why, for me, it felt like it was time is because it was clear to me that the large corporation and like that large company size was not meant for the builder in me. I love building things. That's my background. I'm an engineer. And the bureaucracy and the red tape in large organization was slowing me down, and I was just going banana.
I love that. Let's keep that in mind, because I have one question before we go into your career journey in corporate. You started a company with your husband. So how do you do that? How do you decide, with my partner in life, I'm going to start a company? What are your rules of engagement when it comes to building a company together that our audience can learn from?
So in our case, we went on a path that I don't think is for everybody. We decided to sell everything that we had, everything. So we sold our house, we sold our car, we sold our socks, we sold detergent, everything. There was like no turning back. We burned all our bridges. And the reason for it was because I was so convinced that we will succeed that I didn't want to have a backup. I did not want to have a backup. In our case, the reason why it works well, and I don't recommend for all the couples to start working together, is because we have very complementary skill sets. So I was starting, so we, in order to get the company started, I only agreed to start the company with him as me being the CEO and him being the president. So I knew that I needed to be in charge. But my strength is product and engineering and like creating software that gets engagement. Whereas he is very skilled when it comes to sales and marketing and operations. So he was like my go-to-market better half. And we knew that if we were to pair these skill sets together, we would have better chances of success. And in addition to being complementary, we're very good at solving problems. So whenever there's conflict between the two of us, whenever we have very strong opinions that are polar opposites, we've created our own methods and process to solving those differences, and it's very challenging. For those that are listening and have children and have very different points of view on how to raise their children, whether it's like feeding them too much broccoli, less broccoli, chocolate, the screen time. Like there's so many topics in which couples fight on. If you are not good at those micro instances of conflict, of solving conflict and creating like a process to mediate these kind of things, then company is going to be a disaster. But we knew that we were very good at those kind of things.
Okay, so you started from knowing each other well, understanding what are your top skills, and then complementing those in building a company and setting strict rules on, this is my territory, this is how I engage, and this is where we collaborate. I think that's also very, it sounds very mature and also very well thought through. And my question before we go into the next phase, I have so many questions for you, Alina, but is that something that came naturally, or did you give yourself, I don't know, 6 months, a year to see if this will work out?
I just knew that it would work out. Everything that I knew of him, we had worked together before, so it was not my first roller coaster working with him, and I did not have any doubts that it would work out. We had some challenges along the way. At some point, I almost fired him. At some point, he almost fired me, but we survived those challenges. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And in your career path, you said that you started your career in the US working for someone else, right? So you wanted to be in that CEO position and you wanted to climb the corporate ladder. Can you give us a quick rundown on how did you start your journey?
I knew that I wanted to do something around engineering, and I knew that I wanted to do something around product. And when I came here, it was the beginning of iPhone time. They had just launched it. There were no apps in it, and I wanted to be the expert at building mobile products. I started building a few of them for free for a few entrepreneurs, and I started learning how to do that. I got a few successes, so I built a portfolio. And when I started going into interview, I was one of the few people at that time to have a portfolio. And that got me into the doors of a publicly traded company as an intern. I was paid like $10 an hour, I don't remember, at Reuters. And that's how I got started.
Amazing. And your journey is that from intern to SVP 6 years, correct? Right. So that's a pretty fast forward track, Alina. I don't think there are many people that can do that. What was I don't know, 2, 3 episodes where you were like, okay, this is the time that I'm gonna go to the next level. Did you envision that you would get there in 6 years? Did you have a career plan in this regard, or did you just know that every month will take you there?
I knew that I wanted to be at the top of the totem pole. I didn't know what would get me there. I was very motivated, and I think that plays a big role, the motivation and the drive. And I just wanted to get started and see how I would create my own path. I had a very rocky first year because I was doing very well. In my first year, I was super lucky that Steve Jobs sent one of his direct reports in our company. He wanted to build something for the iPad before the iPad was built, and I was the only one in the company that had experience because I was like with all this portfolio on mobile, and there was another guy that was a good engineer, and I started sketching and doodling what should be the app.
Wow.
We had an iPad before anybody else had access to it, but it was in a room in a basement with like a chain on a table. And I had to swear my firstborn that I would not talk about it with anyone else. And we got lucky because the app got, in the end, keynoted by Steve Jobs, and we had it like everywhere in Times Square. So I really thought that I was doing really well. Because all of a sudden Reuters got 30 million users from this kind of distribution because we got embedded in every iPad that was sold. It wasn't amazing. Like the app was super good. So I thought, oh, I made it. I'm in Times Square. I've got 30 million users. As an intern, you think, wow, it's like the ultimate success. But because I didn't fully understand this concept of working within a team and working with the team and including the team as part of the process. I was more of a lone wolf. My manager was very unhappy with me, and at that time he was in a different location, and he said, Alina, I don't think this is going to work out. You have to go.
Wow.
And I got really stressed out because at that time I had some financial burdens behind my back, and I went to the boss's boss's boss at that time, I think, and I started figuring out if there's like another role for me in the organization before I would get fired for good. And I got lucky because there was one. So I was intern to almost getting fired to getting promoted to director in 1 year, but only because I figured out like a way within the organization to pick myself out of that unfortunate situation that I had made with my manager at that time.
Wow, Alina, that's a pretty wild story. I think something I want to discuss here is the importance of finding yourself in the right situation and knowing when the right time is. For you, it was not a choice. You had to figure out your setup by yourself. So you went and found another job. But in other situations, you can actually build up a network of supporters and understand what's important for certain colleagues in the organization, for the leadership, and build up your potential profile in that company. How did you, from getting the next job, let's say after this episode, how did you then become an SVP? Did you figure out that this is a way to go, or how did you look at it after this episode?
I think that my strength comes from three things that I've done well in like this career progression. One is understanding very well trends in the market, understanding how within my role, how the industry is going to play out, how what's patterns into success for the company. And that is useful for any company that I would go in. So results for them, that was like my top priority. And for that, I've always been a maniac at reading everything that comes under my hands. And these days it's a lot easier with ChatGPT to understand these trends. But at that time I was reading on communities. I was reading every possible review. I would test myself all the apps that were coming up to market, the ones that were top of the charts, etc. So I was very good at understanding patterns and trends. The other piece is understanding the person that's going to promote you very well and understanding the needs and the use cases and the results of that person that can promote you very, very well. And it's not always obvious who can make that decision because it's not always your manager. Your manager might not have the strength to pull you up. It might be somewhere else in the organization, and understanding who your champion is going to be and what you can do for them is critical. Oftentimes for me, it was the boss's boss's boss that could make that decision, not my boss. And for me, getting closer to that person, understanding what was important for them and delivering on that, and being able to be an advocate on my behalf, so that it's clear that those results were coming from me, not from anybody else. So making sure that there's an identification of those results in myself. Not that not everyone else's work was important, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm visible and I'm on their radar, and that I'm talking positively about the results that I was getting. And the third thing is understanding the detractors into the process as well, because oftentimes you will have people in the organization that will not want you to get promoted. Actually, they will try their best to make sure that doesn't happen, oftentimes because of competitive reasons. They want to be the one who get promoted. And understanding that makeup of the organization is critical, and that was something that I was paying a lot of attention to.
Wow. Okay. Many questions here. The first one is, how do you become visible? What do you do to make sure that you're not necessarily not showing the team spirit, because you said that played a role in your career journey as well, but you still want to make sure that you are going beyond your manager or your manager's manager visibility?
I would go always out of my way to report on the results that we're getting to everybody. This is where we are. This is where we were last week. This is where we are now. This is what we've done. And reporting on any internal channels. Hey, this is what we've been doing. This is what we got. And I would always use the word we. I would not use this is what Alina, I have done. It was this is what we've got. This is what we're doing. In our case, it was always product. This is how many new users we got. This is how the engagement looks like. This is what conversions we're getting. This is what kind of results. I would love input. I would love to hear how you're all thinking that we're doing. And so I would always use that opportunity to also gather feedback and do better, but also to make sure that I report on what was going well as well. I would not sugarcoat the type of things that were going badly. I would highlight those as well and present them as opportunities on areas that we can improve and gather feedback on how we could do better. And as a result, I would be seen naturally as a leader, because I would always be front and center, even when I didn't have direct reports.
Cool. Very cool. And how do you handle detractors then?
That part is a little bit tricky, because I found myself many times where my detractors were actively trying to sabotage me, and they would find weaknesses in my work and go and talk behind my back. Well, Alina, she's doing these things badly, and then she's making this mistake. And we're humans, we're always going to make mistakes. And those who really want to find stuff, they're always going to find stuff, and they're going to amplify it. And unfortunately, you're always going to have that kind of competition. It is what it is in most organizations. And what I would try to do is anticipate what were the type of things that they might find on things that I might be doing wrong, and put them in my reports. Hey, these are the type of things that we're doing wrong. These are some mistakes. I wish I would learn from you how we can do it better. That way, it was not something like a rumor that would go behind my back. I would be ahead of it.
So you would put in front of your audience also the weaknesses, so that they don't become stuff that people discuss about without
and behind my back. Yeah,
exactly. You having a pulse on it, being like, actually, know that this is something we need to work on.
Yeah, I would be basically in charge of my reputation ahead of the reputation preceding me.
I love that. What about sponsors, Alina? Sponsors when we talk about sponsors at FemLead, we've had a full episode on it where we basically focused on how important it is that when you're not in the room, people talk about you positively and they support your work. How can you build a network of sponsors?
In my case, I would always find I would try to understand clearly who would be in their best interest if I do really well. So in my case, because I would create a big audience with our users, I would make sure that sales knows of it and can make the most out of it, that my marketing team can sell or whatever most impressions, or they can get most leads from it. So being clear on what the positive outcomes I can bring to the other departments based on what they would be responsible for and support them in their goals was always top of mind for me. And I would make sure that I understand what they are responsible for, what they are double clicking on, and make sure that I help them with their goals. And because I was in product, I was always involved with sales and marketing and everyone else around me, and I helped them. And I would always double their goals because I knew that I could. So everybody was very much incentivized to keep me around.
That's really gold advice. I'm so happy that we get to talk about this because I think in general, women or people in general, actually, they're not necessarily always going forward to ask for help and understand, how is it that I can help you? And setting yourself up for success also means letting people know that if there's something you should be aware of, they should tell you. So you have that in mind as well and anticipate their needs, and thus working together. I really love that. When it comes to charisma, Alina, you told me that charisma played the important role in your career development because you didn't necessarily think that you had that charisma that is descriptive of leaders, and that you read a lot about it in order to build up that profile. Can you tell us a little bit about how did charisma play in your journey?
So I have to paint to describe myself how I behaved like when I was at the beginning of my career. I would be super, super shy. I would not look people in the eyes. I would barely speak. And I would look at the people at the top, the CEOs and the SVPs, and they all looked so at ease with large groups. They would all look at ease with creating a presentation, with speaking big crowds, to creating a narrative. And I had none of those skills. So I started to read every possible book on how to communicate better and how to be a better leader and how to be more charismatic. I read all the power books, Cialdini, Persuasion, you name it. And I remembered nothing and I could apply nothing. I would not change. I was just still an introvert geek that was all awkward and had a fear of speaking. What I realized is that even though I sounded awkward, even though I looked awkward, my results were what spoke for me and on my behalf, and that played a huge role. Eventually, I got outside of my shyness and my awkwardness, so now nobody would label me as an introvert or as someone who's lacking charisma. But I only realized that I managed to improve when I stopped being afraid. I stopped being afraid of speaking. I stopped being afraid of people. I started being afraid of large crowds. And whenever I would notice that I was most afraid, that's where I went straight in and digged in to learn. So even that's something, a philosophy that I still apply. Whenever I'm scared most, that's where I go and learn and go deep in.
Is there a strategy you used to be aware of when you're fearful and how to handle that?
I will give an example. So for me, speaking up has been being a speaker has been very challenging until maybe 3 years ago. So this has lasted for a very long time. Even though I was an SVP, I would still be afraid of being on a stage. And this has changed for me when I realized that I had things that were important to say. And it happened in February 2022. It was when the Ukraine war started. It was close to home. It was the border of Romania. And I'm also a mom, and I would see all these moms with children at the borders fleeing their home. And I get goosebumps just talking about it. It was breaking my heart to see that happening. And I said, I have to do something. I can't just sit here and then just watch it happening. So I created a Google Doc where I started mapping all the routes at the borders where the moms they could take and where they could find shelter, where they could find support, what jobs they could find, baby clothes, stuff like that. And that document went viral. I managed to deploy $1 million at the borders to help these moms. All of a sudden, I was on news everywhere because it was actually helping finding the best routes to cross the borders, etc. And I said, "Fuck! If I didn't speak up, I would not have been able to help." So silly me, I'm afraid of something, but I'm just afraid of using my voice to do good. And that's where my fear broke. And I said, I'm not going to sit silent. I'm not going to sit silent.
Wow, what a story. Thank you for sharing, Alina, and congrats for taking the lead to speak up and change your life, but also I'm sure the lives of many, many other women by doing that. I think this is a beautiful segue into discussing women that work and building a successful career, because you are a role model for many women around the world. You are a successful entrepreneur. And as a leader, you are seen as a very empathic leader and supportive leader. And you did tell me that you focus on career growth for your colleagues, you focus on career growth for the women in your network and people that are discussing with you about their journey. What is, in your perspective, I would say 2 or 3 main pieces of advice that you want to give women that look at their career in the next 10 years and they're like, I don't know how to get there? Because your story is quite, fast forward, intern to SDP in 6 years, but it's not going to happen for everyone. What should people think about when they want to plan their careers or when they have ambitious plans?
So I create a lot of skill matrices for various jobs. So in the past 2 years, for instance, I was quite focused on marketing because I took the acting CMO in my company. I was very motivated to understand that job better. And I've identified 15 skill sets that were critical to the role. And then I just prioritize the top ones to make sure that we're good at assessing the different levels that everyone is at and kind of putting them into a matrix so that they can understand what they need to do to level up. And I noticed that a big piece of the puzzle, one that would make or break the next level, would be their infectious belief. And what I mean by infectious belief is their ability to believe that they can do it.
Mhm.
And oftentimes we have this little voice in our head, like a little, I don't know, critic, and especially it happens a lot with women, where we have a troll in our head and we think that we're an imposter and we can't do it and we don't really aim to go higher. And you don't see that in men. The men, they, as you know, all the statistics show that they will apply on things that they're not qualified and they'll just go and they say, I'll figure it out. Whereas the women, they want to see first that indeed they can satisfy the job requirements, etc.
Yeah.
And it's actually not the case. You can still learn on the job. Frankly, myself, I still feel like I'm the way I'm experiencing building this company is that I'm building a plane where I'm flying and I have thousands of people in the back, and it's the first time I'm trying to pilot or build a plane. You learn a lot on the job and you're always going to feel stretched. And if you figure out ways in which you don't feel stressed, but you still feel stretched and you're learning, but you have the confidence that eventually you will figure it out, you will.
Wow, that's really good and very true, right? There was the study that shared that women apply when they are 90% there in terms of job requirements, and men apply on average from 40 to 60%. And that's a big gap. Big gap, yes. What about women and motherhood, Alina? You are a mom, and you are also very, very committed to your setup at home while you're still building a business. A lot of women are debating their career choices when they are mothers or when they want to become mothers. How has that journey been for you, and what did you learn from becoming a mom?
In my case, I hesitated a lot before deciding to have children, because you never quite feel ready, or at least in my case, I never quite felt ready. Somehow I was hoping to become an adult before I could have children, and I wanted to be mature enough to be able to take care of others. I didn't want to start it by having a lot of traumas on my own. I wanted to work on my own monsters before I got ready, but I never quite got to the point where I felt truly ready. And eventually I said, darn it, I'll just going to do it because I'm getting too old, and who knows if I'm going to still be able to conceive. And it was the most beautiful thing I could have done. In my case, at the beginning it was super rough. Like the pregnancy, I hated it. The first year was like a blur, because the body was trying to recover from all the things. However, the gift that I got from motherhood is something that I did not expect. I became a lot more appreciative of everyone around me. I became a lot more appreciative of all the parents that I have in my company, all the parents that are at work, understanding like the hardship that they're going through, and more appreciative of life altogether, how hard it is to give life, how hard it is to protect life. And as a result, I became a better multitasking,
I bet.
It brought to me more perspective. And now I have 2 little ones, and I bring them to work, and I include them in my work. I want to show them that it can be fun. That I don't work because I have to. I work because I love it, and that's a beautiful thing, a beautiful gift that I think I can give them, because most of the times kids, they see their parents and they see them miserable at work, and then they don't really look forward to that. And in my case, I really love what I do, and I tell them, the way you love to play Legos, me, I love to go to work. It's as fun for me as it is for you playing Legos.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing, Galina. And on that note, I know that this also has a good connect into perhaps why we see fewer women in leadership when it comes to, career decisions and timing and priorities. Why do you think that we have, in today's day and age, fewer women in leadership?
There's a lot of pressure both ways. So for women who chose not to give birth, there's a lot of pressure that they feel from society that they should be having children, as if it was something that they're expected to do. So there's a lot of pressure from that expectation, but there's also a lot of pressure from, once they have children, to care for them. So especially in US, they receive a lot of criticism for both things. For either, if they stay at home, they might feel a lot of pressure from society of, why are you not at work doing something? Why are you dedicating yourself fully to the children? And the opposite also happens. If they're at work, why are you not home with the children? In my case, because I'm so public, I saw one time a few Reddit comments that said, I can't believe that she travels and she leaves her kids alone. How dare she? And what kind of mother is she? So me, in my case, I actually see these comments publicly. Probably for other mothers, they just see it in the in the glances of others. So there's a lot of criticism, and they probably at some point give into those comments and decide to step back or take up a lesser role in their organization, and decide that the stress at the top might not be worth for them. Success is only what you make out of it. And in my case, I'm now looking to, obviously, I have constraints of the market, and I need to double my revenue for my SaaS company, and I need to do certain things for my stakeholders. And those are things that are priority for me, of course. And at the same time, I also want to make sure that when I do things, I do them out of joy, and I do them out of passion and out of fulfillment. And I aim to have that for my employees as well, because life is short. And if you come to work because you have to, and only because you have to, it's really hard to get the best results, and it's really hard to navigate the path. So right now, success for me is a blend of finding that equation of how much joy versus how much work that I do for the success of my shareholders in my company. And I seek to get that perfect combination.
Yeah, it's a balance, and it's a journey, and it's not something that happens every week, right? Like you probably have some tough months, and then you have the good ones as well. Thank you
It's a
so much,
roller
Alina.
coaster. Yeah.
It is absolutely. Thank you so much, Alina, for this interview. Really appreciate your time and your advice. And keep going, keep being our role model, and keep bringing people along with you. Very, very thankful that you spend time with me, and also very thankful that you do so much work for so many women everywhere.
Thank you, Alexandra, for doing the work on this podcast. I'm very, very grateful that you're also amplifying women's voices.
Thank you, Alina. And thank you all for watching today. Stay tuned for more interviews with inspiring role models.
If you liked this episode, please give us a review on your preferred streaming platform. Spread the word, share our stories with your friends, and stay connected with us on our social media platforms. See you next time.